Okay, third objection. Homosexuality is unnatural and or abnormal. 9%. Though, again, you got to think that the people that have a problem with this, ultimately, most of them also think this. Okay, first let's take unnatural. Homosexuality has been documented in many other animal species. It is therefore natural. If what you mean by natural is that it's something that occurs in nature. It's not just because we have, our kinds of technology or society or whatever it is that they want to blame this on. No, it happens to animals that have no such excuse. So that's ridiculous. But to be fair to those people, not everything that happens in nature is necessarily desirable. So those who claim that homosexuality is abnormal don't simply mean that it's uncommon, like left-handedness, for example, right? Only 10% of people, approximately, are left-handed. And gay people, it's 12 to 13%.
And they're weird because they have to use special scissors.
Yeah, and this is a good time to point out that people who were left-handed used to be subject to prejudice.
Oh yeah, my roommate was in parochial school, and they would slap his hand and forced him to learn to write with his right hand.
I didn't know that was going on so recently.
Yeah, and he's 37. So they smack him on the hand, get him to. So now he's ambidextrous. So it worked out good because he can he plays golf left-handed, but he writes right-handed, and he can do things with either hand as needed.
Right.
He's still weird.
So there's the unnatural argument, which is ridiculous, because that's clearly not the case. And then there's the abnormal in the sense of undesirable, bad, it's a malady that we want to fix. But a good example of a malady that we'd want to fix would be, say, cancer, right? Which clearly is harmful. And when a person has cancer, you don't say, well, he's just like a left-handed person. No, you say, that guy's about to die unless we take extreme medical steps. And that is why it's reasonable to treat cancer as an abnormality. Being gay has not been shown to be any more harmful than any other uncommon but natural innate human trait, like left-handedness. Now, when AIDS happened, there was, of course, the chorus of those bigots who wanted to leap on that and say, ha-ha, now we have proof that it's dangerous to be gay. But, AIDS doesn't just kill gay people. It's a fluke of coincidence that it happens to be transmitted in a way that it largely affects the gay community, and that does not make that case.
There's another thing about abnormal, and this is just kind of quick off the top of my head. If you're gonna use abnormal in the sense of saying something is bad and necessarily undesirable, that kind of requires a baseline or a goal.
Uh-huh.
You have to have some framework of, for example, you could say that homosexuality is bad with regard to evolution because you are not passing on your genes. You have your particular sexual desires do not afford you the opportunity to pass on your genes. So you could say it's bad if you have that goal. And the question is, what goal are they imposing over this in order to say that it's abnormal? And it turns out that it's an ethical or moral goal, which is kind of infused by about 80% of the population and perhaps less, depending on, particular denominations. And we live in a place where you're not supposed to be able to dictate ethics and moral behavior of people based on your own religious opinions. But
let me bring up another example, I think, that
sure.
that raises this. I was reading an article recently about, I hate to get this wrong, because people who have conditions that cause them to be small when they're adults. There's different technical terms for that.
Various dwarfisms.
And I'm afraid of using the wrong term because I don't want to offend those people. But
dwarfism in little people is...
Okay. So one or both of those things, there's a potential for genetic treatments that would, or perhaps it's just, examining the embryos before they're born, to guarantee that the offspring would not carry that trait. And dwarf or small people parents many of them object to the very idea of having their children prevented from carrying on this trait because they don't see it as a malady. And since we don't have the same kind of religiously motivated objection to being a little person, if you look at that as an analogy, it's not at all obvious that those parents are wrong when they say they'd like to be able to pass that on.
Yeah, if we can look at it and easily put it in a scope of, we're looking at the human race in its entirety and what's generally considered normal and what we would generally consider good traits to pass on. But you're really talking about evolution is entirely about small changes over a great deal of time, and there's occasionally some fluke change, and you could make the argument, how do you know that this fluke change of whatever causes, let's say, achondroplasic dwarfism leads on to something which may be better? And that is important because evolution doesn't have a goal. We impose goals over the top of it when we're in discussions about things, but evolution in and of itself has no goal. It's just random mutations over time, and we may have more impact upon that now, being conscious and having some control over direction, and enforcing a non-natural selection, some kind of arbitrary selection, but there's no goal there implied.
Right. Agreed. All right, let's move on to the next one. And now they're starting to get up there. Marriage is defined as one man and one woman. 16% of people asked why they object to same-sex marriage, bring up this little excuse. And that claim may even actually be true of most dictionaries. I don't think that the right response to this challenge, though, is a duel of Webster's versus the New American Standard Dictionary. The error here is the idea that dictionary definitions ought to control our lives. Dictionary definitions change all the time, and they do that naturally as we in society over generations change the way that we use words. So it's actually the other way around. What we do is examined by the people writing dictionaries or how we use words, and then the dictionaries are written to reflect what we do. We don't do what we do to conform to dictionaries. If our culture finds it sensible to expand our concept of marriage to include same-sex couples, then the dictionary definitions will change over time to reflect that.
Not only that, but this isn't just a dictionary definition, it's a legal definition. And even if the legal definition was, in fact, one man, one woman, it doesn't matter what the dictionary or legal definition is. What matters is what the dictionary and legal definitions can be. Because at one time, voter, legally and in the dictionary, was defined as white man. And now women can vote and people of other races can vote. It's about changing things. And this idea that we need to stick with concepts that, are 200 or 2,000 years old, that, some ultimate truth was discovered back then. They got it right and we shouldn't change anything. To me, that's just patently absurd.
Right. The variation on this is it undermines the traditional family, right?
Who says the traditional family shouldn't be undermined?
Oh, there's a whole nest of things wrong with this. I mean, yeah, right. There's nothing about tradition. The traditions are no more valid things to point to say that's how we ought to live than our dictionaries. We ought to live the way that works best for most people, I think, right? That optimizes happiness and freedom. And appealing to a dictionary definition or a legal definition or a tradition and saying, no, we have to keep doing like that, is just, closed-minded and blinkered. It makes no sense. Okay. But then, on top of that, there's the whole issue of whether there's some undermining going on. And I still don't understand this one. I'm not gay, I'm married, and my wife and I are not going to get a divorce, and our family is not going to fall apart if our next-door neighbors are gay and are able to be married. There's just no level on which that makes the slightest bit of sense. I I've been on the show before and asked callers, please, if you can explain to me how it's going to hurt your heterosexual marriage if other people who are gay are also able to be married, please call in and explain that.
I mean, yeah, you could have, like, for instance, next door neighbors, two gay men who've been living together for 15 years and go off and secretly get married. You wouldn't know it. It wouldn't affect you. So why is it suddenly different if they're publicly and legally allowed to be married? You might not even notice if they didn't invite you to the ceremony. You don't have anything to do with them filling out their taxes or their insurance forms or any of the other things that are affected by marriage. So, if you have some reason, if you're out there and you think that gay marriage is a threat to your heterosexual marriage, please call in and explain why.